West of the Twin Cities, the land softens into a country of water and woods, where a great lake spreads its arms into a maze of bays and a patchwork of forest, marsh, and pasture wraps the shore. This is a place where wild ground and worked ground sit side by side, where a nature preserve and a working farm share the same rolling horizon. Come along and let this quiet country open in front of us. Welcome to Lake Minnetonka Country. We are in Carver County, Minnesota, in the gentle hill country just west of Minneapolis and St. Paul. Around us lie the towns of Victoria and Minnetonka, and beyond the trees the long shape of Lake Minnetonka. This route carries us through two very different pieces of ground, Carver Park Reserve and Gale Woods Farm, both cared for by the same regional park district. Together they tell the story of this land, wild and tended alike. The lake at the heart of this country carries a Dakota name, Minnetonka, meaning big water, and from that name we get Minnetonka. It is not a single round basin, but a sprawling web of bays and channels, islands and narrows that seems to go on and on. For the Dakota people, whose homeland this is, the big water was a center of life, a place of travel, gathering, and plenty. That older meaning still lingers over every quiet inlet here. Long before parks and farms drew their boundaries, this whole region was Dakota Homeland, a landscape read closely and known well. The lakes offered fish and wild rice, the woods offered game and shelter, and the open prairies offered room to move with the seasons. This route passes through country that held generations of that life. We come to it as visitors, mindful that the land remembers far more than we can see. The first of our two grounds is Carver Park Reserve, a broad preserve of lakes, marshes, and rolling woodlands set aside for wild things and quiet visits. It is one of the larger reserves held by the Three Rivers Park District, which cares for a chain of natural areas across this part of Minnesota. Here the land is left mostly to itself, shaped by water and weather rather than by the plow. The trail leads us into a country of reeds, open water, and shifting light. Much of the reserve is a mosaic of wetland and restored prairie, the two great habitats of this region woven together. Cattail marshes hold still water where herons stalk and blackbirds cling to the reeds, while nearby the grassland ripples with tall stems and late summer bloom. These are the working parts of a living landscape, filtering water, feeding birds, and storing the memory of the prairie that once ran for miles. Along the way, the ground shifts underfoot from soft and wet to dry and grassy. Near the center of the reserve stands the Lowry Nature Center, opened in 1970 as the first public nature center in Minnesota. It was built on a simple idea that people who come to know the marsh and the woods will care for them, and so it opened its doors to school groups and families alike. Boardwalks and paths reach out from it into the wetland, inviting a closer look at the ordinary wonders of this ground. From here, the wild parts of the reserve lie close at hand. Beyond the marshes rises a different world, a patch of the old hardwood forest that early French travelers called the Bois Grands, the Big Woods. This was a broad belt of dense deciduous forest that once stretched across south-central Minnesota, a shadowed realm of towering trees. Most of it was cleared long ago for fields and towns, which makes the surviving groves all the more precious. The trail leads us in under a high green canopy where the light turns soft and cool. The Big Woods was a forest of sugar maple, basswood, elm, and oak, trees that grew tall and close and shaded out almost everything below. In spring, the maples gave sap for sugar, and in autumn the whole forest turned to gold and flame. Beneath such a canopy, it is easy to feel how the first settlers saw these woods as both a barrier and a bounty. Here a remnant of that grand forest still holds its ground. This country also holds a quieter kind of history, and it belongs to a German immigrant named Wendelin Grimm. In the 1850s, he settled here in Carver County with little more than his family, his tools, and a small sack of alfalfa seed carried from the old country. The northern winters were harsh, and most of his seed died in the cold, yet a few plants survived each year. Grimm saved seed from those survivors, season after patient season. Over years of saving the hardiest plants, Grimm bred an alfalfa tough enough to endure Minnesota winters, and neighbors came to call it the Everlasting Clover. It was a quiet triumph of patience, a crop that could feed livestock through the long cold and renew itself each spring. In time, this winter hardy alfalfa spread far beyond Carver County and transformed farming across the northern states. From one immigrant's stubborn seed grew a foundation of northern agriculture. That farming heritage carries us to the second half of our route, Gale Woods Farm, a working educational farm set on the shore of a smaller lake. Like the reserve, it is cared for by the Three Rivers Park District, but here the land is tended rather than left wild. Pastures, gardens, barns, and grazing animals show how food is raised on this kind of northern ground. The trail leads us out of the woods and into an open, worked country. Gale Woods is a place where the work of a farm is meant to be seen and understood. Sheep and cattle move across rotating pastures, chickens keep to their yards, and rows of vegetables ripen through the season. It stands as a teaching farm, showing children and visitors where their food begins and how good land is kept healthy. Here, the everlasting lesson of Grimm's clover, that livestock and soil depend on one another, is still at work. The farm looks out over Whaletail Lake, a modest and peaceful water set among the fields and trees. Its curving shoreline and quiet bays offer a gentler counterpart to the sprawling reaches of Minnetonka nearby. Cattails fringe the edges, and the pastures roll right down toward the water. Along this stretch, the route follows the meeting place of farm and lake, where tended ground gives way to open sky. Standing between the wild reserve and the working farm, we can see how completely this country has always been shaped by hands and seasons. The Dakota knew it as a homeland of water and woods. The settlers cleared and planted it, and today it is held in trust as both wild refuge and living farm. It is a landscape that still works, still teaches, and still gives. The path draws these threads together under one wide Minnesota sky. A country of big water and deep woods, of an immigrant's everlasting clover and a farm that still feeds the curious, all held within a few gentle miles of Minnesota. From the Dakota Homeland to the nature center to the pastures of Gale woods, this ground carries its whole long story lightly. We are glad you came along to see it with us. Thank you for watching. Follow for more interesting people, places, and things we cover on the channel.